Feedback by RQK. Chapter 13 Causality. A cloudless night allowed the moon to take precedence over the land of Equestria. While dull to the previous nights, the white ball in the sky shone with unprecedented ferocity. A sheet of stagnant air covered the land. A low rumble rose up from the ground. The ground vibrated, sending reverberations throughout the trees, through the plains, and finally into the buildings. The tremors grew in intensity. Bell towers hummed as their metallic bells resonated, and water slossed about within their basins. In a few instants, the residents of Ponyville rushed out of their homes. They glanced around with worried expressions as they wiped the slumber from their eyes. Neighbors turned to each other, and with fledgling rumors spread about. Was it a monster? Was it an earthquake? The citizens of Canterlot cried out as a pillar of light erupted from the mountain top. The incomprehensible energy radiating off the beam flew through their veins, and even caused some to lose their balance. The howling mass of energy bent the very air around it. To a degree, it even pulled on the city below. In one of the northern parts of Equestria, a dark, bulky stallion silently watched the lights show on the horizon. He struck his hoof through the hairs on his chin and hummed to himself. The citizens of the Crystal Empire, too, looked up at the light on the horizon, but with wonder. Their coats shimmered and sparkled as they soaked it in. The ruling couple did much of the same on the balcony of the Crystal Palace. The end of the pillar reached out toward the heavens. It surpassed Cloudsdale in height, and only stretched higher from there. The light grew in strength and blinded those below. The war crescendoed, and the shaking grew to a point where wall decorations dropped to the floors below. This doesn't look like the beam would reach the moon. The tip exploded with a loud bang! A large set of star shapes appeared in the sky. One monolithic purple star-like figure, with 5 white companion stars. The constellation eclipsed the moon, covering the land in a warning, levitating glow. In Canterlot, 2 alicorn sisters appeared on the outside of the castle's balconies. They looked upwards towards the blazing stars above them. Younger looked towards the elder, as the latter considered a large stack of paper. The elder then glanced back up toward the symbol with a smile on her face. In the city below, a unicorn stallion and unicorn mare rushed into each other's embrace at the mere sight of the mark. They shouted out of joy as tears fell from their eyes. Near the base of the Crystal Mountains, amidst a collection of tents, an earth pony adjusted his glasses once and hummed to himself. He stood in sad fascination, throwing around hypotheses what could mean. Out on the open sea, a salty sea dog and mermare looked up toward the symbol in front of the moon and let out a hearty laugh. In the Badlands, a changeling queen snorted at the sight. She swirled around and stomped back into the mouth of the cave. Somewhere, Discord smiled and simply clapped. The pillar of light flashed once more before it pulled the star out of the sky and receded into the mountain. The rumbling dwindled down to a light shiver, and it faded into the night altogether. Somewhere, starlight glimmer smirks. The mountain spoke no more, and Equestria fell silent. High above the plain, a single floating figure looked down on the mountain top. He considered what had just happened and smiled, baring his fang. Well, it's about time. The Dracronicus said with a chuckle, before downing another handful of popcorn. Sunset Shimmer knew only darkness. She could feel a pulsing sensation within her chest. Soon enough, she figured out it to be a beating heart. That at least told her she wasn't dead. She tried to move around, but couldn't tell if her body was reacting to her commands. Did she have a body? In her darkness, having a body had no meaning. But wait, again, she had a heartbeat. So, she had a body. It just would not obey. But when it came down to it, she could not find any energy to move the theoretical body. Drained, like the night she had been when she crawled out of a crater. Sunset felt reeling return into her eyes, where it's supposed to be, as she opened them. Her blurred vision faded out to a large, hemispherical room with dozens of symbols on the walls and floor. But where she remembered the red, a cool purple glow lit the area. The air nipped at her coat, but did not bite like a chill, nor burn like a warmth. She blinked once and craned her neck to see 5 ponies, who appeared most close to her how she remembered them than they were before, and a dragon on the floor behind her. They lay sprawled out in every which way, still as statues. She could see some paleness in their coats for a moment, she worried. But they breathed, and it gave her some relief. With a smile, Sunset rolled over to face the center of the room. Like the others, Twilight Sparkle lay on the floor. Her face mimicked that of a sleeping foal. She lay perfectly still as she slept, save for the steady heave as he breathed. She chuckled at the sight. Sunset wiped some of the drowsiness from her face, and when she looked next, Twilight's eyes had popped open. Rather, Twilight stared at her. Her face remained expressionless, but the smallest twinkle in Twilight's eyes spoke to her. Sunset grunted as she tried to lift herself to her hosts, only to have them fall out beneath her before she could find any leverage. Instead, Sunset crawled, dragging herself across the floor. She used her magic to help lift herself up to ease her work. Even then her trek was slow. Even when she slid forward, Twilight seemed no closer. But unlike before, Sunset felt okay with that. She didn't have minutes or hours like before, but years, lifetimes. Sunset went ahead until she joined Twilight in the center of the room. At that point, she flopped onto her side with an exhausted sigh. Hey, Twilight, she said. Twilight's expression remained unchanged. I never thought I'd see you again, Sunset continued. In the flesh, I mean. I'm so glad you're back. You did it. You beat the Nameless. The corners of Twilight's mouth managed to curve up into a smile. Sunset chuckled. Whoever thought we'd be here, huh? She mused. Twilight tried to lift her head so she could see over Sunset. She could see the tops of their forms, but could not read them closely. Sunset looked over her shoulder. They're all right. I think we're a little low on energy right now, she said before she looked the mare in the eye. Especially you, huh? Twilight nodded. Sunset smiled. There's no rush. Twilight groaned and lifted a hoof off the floor. She extended it, stretched it even, before she let it fall to the ground in front of Sunset. Twilight had an intense stare in her eyes. Sunset considered it for a moment, and reached out with her own hoof. She found she had to move closer for it to reach, strained to shift forward. The hooves connected and held firm. Sunset smiled and looked at her. Sunset could see it in Twilight's eyes. The twinkle of a grateful mare who was seconds away from tears from how happy she was. Sunset, in response, held on tighter. I know what you're going to say, she whispered, and you're welcome. Anything for you. With a smile, Twilight closed her eyes once more and drifted back into her unconsciousness. Sunset's heart dwelled in her chest. She smiled to herself and closed her eyes as well, content to welcome the Sandmare back. A smile grew on her muzzle as her drowsiness returned. She had one last thought before she disappeared once more. We did it. Sunset's hooves dug into the ground as she trotted along. The crystal walls reflected her image as she went. At frequent intervals, long unlit torches jutted out of the wall. She looked out over her shoulder at the weary souls behind her. The 6 of them shuffled, or in Rainbow's case flew, along, letting out occasional yawns as they went. They traveled close together, neck to neck. Sunset smiled as Fluttershy listed several things that he planned to do when they returned to Ponyville. Rarity soon followed. Sunset looked at the figure that straddled across her back. Twilight remained asleep, unaware of what conservations occurred behind them. A light appeared at the end of the tunnel. Sunset straightened up as they approached it, gaining a noticeable length in her stride. We're almost there, she announced. Rainbow Dash rubbed her eyes. No kidding! It looks a little bright out there. Probably because we've been in the dock so long, Rarity replied. Sunset laughed. Yeah, we sure have. They drew closer and closer, and in the light, turned grew brighter. When they finally reached the mouth of the cave, she had to shield her eyes. The sun's rays caressed them, splashing color into their coats. As it creaked upwards just past the horizon, amidst the blue hues of the sky above, it warned them. Sunset beamed. Twilight, she said. Twilight. The mare did not stir. Twilight, look, she said, using her magic to shake the alcorn. It's morning already. Twilight blinked once before she looked up to the swell. She stared into the sky, centering on a bright ball above. As a light wind blew through her mane, it tickled her coat. Twilight took a long whiff of the air. With a happy sigh, Twilight fell back against Sunset's back, and returned to resting with a smile on her face. The other six sprinted past them. They plowed their way into the group of ponies that had been standing at the far end of the site. Point! Sus! Celesti! Several of them cried at once. The princess smiled. My little ponies, how good it is to see all of you, she said. She looked through each of them, then raised an eyebrow. But whatever are all of you doing here? All at once, they looked back at Sunset, who crept forward them with a blush on her face. She returned mostly to the mare on her back. The guards gasped in unison, before they shot glances at each other for breaking protocol. Princess Celestia had failed to notice through her own wide-eyed expression. By the stars, she half whispered. Twilight looked up once, and with a weak smile waved back. Celestia stared for a long while. She placed her hoof over her mouth in an attempt to control her breath. Her mane seemed to freeze in place. Her eyes drifted from the mare on Sunset's back to some place far above the mountain and back again. Could it be? Yipperoonie! Piggy Pie exclaimed as he danced about. We totally did! It was a long fight, and we fought hard. Then we kind of didn't fight, but then we did this real hard thinking stuff, and then whoosh! She said, arching her hoof through the air. We kind of did it! Rarity nodded. We did, although really, Twilight helped us along the way. The princess blinked. Twilight helped you with this? Rarity giggled. It's complicated. Short version is, yes, Sunset added. Celestia threw her head back and laughed. Her loud giggles echoed off the mountainside, and in all likelihood could be heard from the city below. Her guards looked up at her in questioning. Princess? One of them asked unconcerned. Celestia wiped a tear from her eyes. Oh my goodness. I guess I should have known this was happening all along. I mean, I did that spectacle last night. Elsa frowned. Spectacle? We, Celestia muttered to her guards, were preparing to mount an expedition into the cave, in light of the magical surge last night, Celestia said. Then she smiled as she peered over to the mare on Sunset's back. But I can see that's no longer necessary. Spike crossed his arms. Yeah, but we should probably still make sure she's okay and everything. Celestia nodded. Yes, I agree. We should get her to Canterlot General. Come, my little ponies. Gosh darn it, why is it that 99% of these fics that I keep reading end up with at least one pony in the hospital? Sunset's attention drifted back and forth between Twilight and the nurse watching her. The nurse, for his part, ran down a list on the clipboard floating in front of him. The hot monitor on the wall beat in constant rhythm, while several numbers underneath called out several numbers that went to statistics she knew she had never studied about. The others sat around edges of the room, each well out of the way while the nurse went about his checks. Rarity washed some dirt off her face using a sink on the wall. Rainbow Dash sat with a hoof on the side against the window, staring out into the afternoon sun. The other four sat in the corner, where they talked in hushed whispers. With the exception of Pinkie Pie's voice, was trumpeted the others. Nurse Heartbreak took a glance at the papers before he nodded. Well, he said, well, looks like mostly everything checks out. Vitals are fine. Brain functions are normal. She's very low on her nutrient levels, and we'll have to need to check a couple of days to correct that. But she'll be okay, though, right? Rainbow Dash asked. Well, after what happened, the nurse said as he read off the clipboard a couple hints of disbelief in his voice. There isn't anything that we did not expect. All things considering, she looks really good. I expect we'll be able to discharge her within 2-3 days tops. Wonderful! Absolutely wonderful! Rarity said. Thank you so much. The nurse flared his horn, using his magic to slot the clipboard back into the front of the bed. You're welcome. All she needs is a little bit of rest right now, so why don't you all go visit for too long, okay? You got it, Doc, Rainbow Dash said. That's a nurse, Sunset thought. Nurse Heartbreak kept a smile as he exited the room and turned down the hall. Sunset laid back against the wall and sighed. She looked around the varnished wooden paneling on the walls, the painting of a tree just next to the door, and the inviting glass of the windows. She had imagined it to be sterile, and it probably was, but this felt warm. She felt composed and relaxed, like she had a clear head. Despite the hospital gown, Twilight appeared just like she had at any other time. She slept with a full-like smile across her face as she clutched an extra pillow to her chest. Sunset nodded to herself. Things are going to go back to normal, huh? Pinkie Pie scooted across the room and dragged herself across the bed. The others giggled in response, even as Pinkie Pie batted at Twilight's mane. Spike's hands met Rarity's hooves as they watched, and the two, even though her attention remained on Twilight, grew a shade redder in response. Alzak held her belly-throttled laughter behind her hat. The mare grabbed a hold of her cushion to keep her balance. Rainbow Dash reclined on the windowsill and let out a yawn, letting her eyes stray back out towards the clear blue skies above. Farsight smiled. She smiled the sort of smile that lit the room. Not too big, but not too small. A smile just right. One that could not have possibly been broken within that moment. Twilight remained blissfully asleep. She let out a moan as she shifted onto the bed. Sunset felt fuzzy inside just from watching all of it. A world with Twilight Sparkle. That was her new reality. How things were meant to be. Sunset scratched at an itch behind her ear. But, she thought, it's not completely over yet. We have our Twilight, but... She looked in the mirror in the bed and frowned. There are other worlds below ours that didn't. She crossed her forelegs. If I quit now, those worlds below us will never get the answer. That wouldn't be fair to them. There are still a few things left to do. The Amber Mare looked up. Spike? She asked. The dragon looked her over. What? You said the answer to the princess, right? Spike raised an eyebrow. Yeah, I did. Did it right before you did that spell. Sunset stood up and slid towards the door. Okay. I'm going to put it you-know-where. Spike nodded and turned his attention back to the mirror bed. All right, you go ahead and do that. Sunset took one last look at Twilight and bit her lip. I guess I'll see you all later, she said. Spike looked back up to wave at her, but hesitated. Wait, he said. Sunset looked over first. The rest of the mares followed suit. Are you heading home afterwards? Spike asked. Sunset nodded in response. He regarded her for a moment before he grinned. Okay, see you later. Sunset looked over at Twilight one last time as a wide grin spread across her face. She almost did not want to go. No, she did not want to go. But somehow, she had every reason to go too. Twilight was with her friends, because things were how they were meant to be. Sunset hung to herself and just stepped out of the room. She only managed a few steps before the pair of unicorns rounded a corner in front of her. They charged straight at her. Sunset flinched and then recoiled entirely. But then the pair moved off to the side as they get by. Sunset frowned. Hey, I remember those two. She looked at them as they slid past her. A blue-coated stallion and a gray-coated mare. The two unicorns dove into the door that they had just came out from. A batch of cries erupted a moment later. Among them, my baby girl! My baby girl's alive! For what had to be the stallion. There a pause and an unsubdued reply of, Mom, Dad, rang out to her. Oh, Twilight! Sunset smiled. Her soul swelled. She could not suppress the giggle that brushed past her lips. At that, she continued onwards. Yet, in those endless halls, Sunset could only hear her footsteps. They echoed throughout the hall, only for her to hear. Sunset shut the door behind her as she entered the tower. Sunset fetched a stack of papers out of her otherwise packed saddlebag and looked over them once. She flipped through the pages of the answer, once while the rest of her magic lay her saddlebag next to the floor. She looked around the room. For the past 5 days it had been her home once more. For the past 5 days, Sunset had relieved days of long past, years even, For once since arriving, Sunset could focus on the tower without drawing herself back to Twilight. Focus on the memories of what it had been once her home. Sunset looked toward the living room, where several cushions lay strewn about. She smiled as she imagined 6 ponies, a dragon, and a crystal ball, all huddled around a card game on the floor. Then she imagined another scene where the 8 had posed for a picture, where that picture then sent itself across time and space. Sunset blinked. That had all happened the day before. With a worried look on her face, Sunset ascended the stairs into the study area. She used her magic to set the answer on the desk. Sunset looked into the hourglass, her single most favorite thing in all of Canterlot, the one spot she had always gone to. Sunset again smiled as he imagined 6 ponies, a dragon, and a crystal ball huddled next to it as he bounced ideas off a chalkboard. Then she imagined as they argued over the origins of a book. That had been a few days ago. She furrowed her brow. Somehow, as she looked, any memories she could think of was them. Everywhere she looked, she could see them. She could hear them as they talked, laughed, cried, slept. Today the tower seemed quiet, like a ghost of its former self. Something was definitely missing. 6 somethings, in fact. I think I may have made a mistake, she thought. Sunset shook her head, and instead strolled over to where the crystal ball sat on the floor. Twilight, she called. Can you hear me? For a moment, the ball remained silent, and then, Huh? Yes, Sunset? Hey. Hi. I just came from the hospital, Sunset said. I know. I saw. Twilight's voice replied. Sunset strolled over to the window. She looked over the rest of the grounds. Then her eyes glided up the wall into the magnificent towers of the main castle. She considered their shining contours with perfect curves. Maybe I left a little too fast, Sunset mused. The voice in the ball did not respond. Anyways, Sunset continued with a shake of her head. I've been thinking a lot about it, and I'm pretty sure of what you all did last night. Oh? Twilight's voice asked. The burn mark downstairs made us think that only 1 pony time traveled, when in fact it was 2. I time traveled first, leaving the initial mark. Then you time travel, right my mark to mask your entry. I imagine that you immediately grabbed the cloak off the hook, so that no pony could see you. Then you went upstairs, looked at the map to remember how you got to the chamber, then teleported to the door. You opened the door for yourself while setting the crystal ball up so that we, well, your world's version of us, can later find you in the crystal ball. Sunset shrugged. Because none of this would have happened if I hadn't spotted you in the crystal ball that first night. Twilight's voice laughed. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. How did you figure it out? The note was found mapped side up instead of no side up like you had left it just after writing it. I knew some pony had turned it over. Cloak is obvious because you had to conceal your identity. Both of those placed you in the tower at some point. Okay, that's pretty smart. But how did you know it was that specific spot? Princess Celestia saw a bright flash of light cover the tower that night. The kind of light that a time spell produces. Really, that's interesting. And there was nowhere else in that tower that had burn marks. Crystal Ball went silent, and then, I could see why you were Celestia's star pupil once. Sunset laughed as she turned around to face the hourglass. She used her magic to lift the top of the apparatus, just like she had several days prior. Her magic aura laid the lid so that way it leaned against the golden flame. For a moment, Sunset ran her eyes down the glass, catching her reflection among the curves. I just wonder, though, she said as she levitated the answer over to her. What were you doing in Carolot anyways? I thought you would be home by now. Sunset could imagine the knot on the other side of the crystal ball. That's right. I spent the last few days in Ponyville just trying to sell myself back in. I mean, when I wasn't watching you guys and the mess I caused. But yesterday, the girls had to talk to the princess and insisted that I come with. Instead, they locked me in this tower with my family while they went and talked. Sunset grinned. So, you'll bring Twilight back here 9 days from now, huh? She thought. I'll be honest. I was a little irked by all that, but now I understand what all of them were doing. They were making sure that I closed the loop. The voice in the vault paused, then added, and all of them are taking me to Donjia Valley later today. Yeah, and in doing that, you passed two obstacles that I thought were impossible. The ball considered it. Which are? Twilight's voice asked. That there's no way to travel between the worlds. You're right. There's no way to travel between the worlds. But then I remembered that the worlds act a lot alike. So I figured if I did something in my world, then it wouldn't happen in their world too. It was just a matter of figuring out what. Right. But you chose time travel. So secondly, that you managed to time travel despite the once per lifetime rule. I remembered that rule too. And then I realized that, having died and come back, I technically started a new lifetime, and thus wasn't bound to by the once per lifetime rule. So I could use it again. Bravo! Just bravo, writer! Woot! Sunset shook her head. Which that is really smart. You're a genius, Twilight. I knew in that moment that I could do it. That my job was to travel back in time and open that door, so I could receive the answer from you and be saved. Twilight's voice giggled. I screamed. I used to have seen the look on Kate's face when that happened. I bet you scared them pretty good. I did! That, and when I found the answer in the hourglass. Which, Sunset said as he held the book back up to stack of papers, I'm about to make possible. Which your world's version of me will find, and then they'll do what I did. Although, I do wonder how much locality would pass. I mean, I would think that this wouldn't happen wherever we first published the answer. Yeah, they do things very differently, I guess, Sunset shrugged. But bug that, not my problem. Do you think that the top world masquerades as a bomb for the world above them? Twilight! Sunset yelled. The voice of the ball paused. What? Sunset shook her head. I said, buck that! Ugh! Fine, I get it. Anyways, before you put that into the hourglass, I actually have one last page to send to you. Sunset raised an eyebrow. One last page? We're missing a page? She nodded and summoned over a quill and a new sheet of paper. Okay, I'm ready to copy it down. Sunset flared her horn, and the crystal ball let out a shriek. An image formed in front of her, and she took a glance at the image within. To her surprise, the page contained not numbers or equations, like she expected, but rather plain text. A cover page, she realized. The answer. Written by Sunset Shimmer. Co-written by Twilight Sparkle. Data collection by Spike, Pinkie Pie, Applejack, Rainbow Dash, Rarity, and Fluttershy. This one-time spell is the product of several realities worth of work and represents the love of close friends who went above and beyond to save some pony dear to them. Sunset blushed as she copied her own name down the image before her. They gave me top billing. It's like they attributed this to me. Her smile grew wider and wider with each name that she took down. By the time she reached the summary, Sunset beamed with pride. She wiped away a few tears as she completed her work and held it up to really drink it in. She sent the completed copy and bound it to the stack. After that, she placed the stack of papers into the basin and lifted the lid back into the top of the hourglass. She then used her hoof to flip the hourglass over. It's done, Sunset said. Sunset hummed as she watched the sand trickle down to the chambers. The grains, so fine he could not distinguish one from another, flowed past each other on their way to the bottom. A small mound appeared on the top of the papers. Soon enough, the papers disappeared entirely into the sand. Sunset? Twilight's voice stammered. I have a confession to make. Sunset hummed absentmindedly. I've had a lot of time to think about it since I came back. And I've made a huge mistake. You can't tell anybody else, okay? Sunset blinked and looked up towards the ceiling. Okay. Twilight's voice sucked in her breath. Rainbow Dash was right. She said that we could have used the rainbow power to defeat the Nameless. It would have worked. I know it would have worked. Sunset swallowed. No way. Can that be right? I underestimated friendship, the ball continued. Even though it has helped us through so many times, I got so scared. It clouded my judgment. This whole mess is really my fault. Sunset shook her head. It would have worked. It would have worked. Sunset felt her eyes drag themselves to the floor. A shiver overtook her, and her bald body felt numb. The past few days of heartache and sadness had happened because Twilight had clouded judgment? No. Sunset grabbed at her head and tried to force it out. But the thought clung to her head. The despair came rushing back. The anguish, the sorrow, and the joy. She paused there. What was Joy doing there? What was determination there? What was hope doing there? What were the other six doing there? As she thought about it, everything else was there because the other six were there. Because it should have been an awful time. But instead, those six had helped. They had given her positive things during a negative time. She had done the same for them. Sure, the days had been filled with despair, anguish, and sorrow. But they had each given each other joy, hope, and given each other reasons to be determined. None of that would have been possible without them, huh? She thought to herself. Sunset snored, half laughed. Now I know I messed up, she muttered. With a sigh, she turned back to the crystal and stared at it intently. What? The Evermare messed with her curled mane. Her eyes shifted about as she thought. With each moment, her mouth curled into a more grin. Hey, Twilight? She finally asked. Yes? Sunset sucked in a breath. Before the funeral, we all got to talking, and they told me about this friendship diary that all of you put together. That's the thing, right? Yes. I usually keep it at the castle library back home, though I have it with me right now. I've gone through some of it over the past few days. Sunset smiled before she headed towards the desk. She grabbed one more piece of parchment and set her quill against it. Well, I was going to wait until I got to the portal to write this, but maybe I should write something now. Twilight's voice hummed. You're going to make a diary entry? Yeah. And then there was a pause. Then, okay. Dear Diary, Sunset dictated as she wrote. Once upon a time, I learned that the magic of friendship doesn't exist in Equestria, but everywhere. That you could seek it out, or you could be alone. I was taught that friendship is everywhere, but never could I have seen it more prominently than the past week. That spark of friendship transcends all borders. Whether separated by a few miles, a few days, or maybe even a few worlds. If you look for it, you will find it. Maybe that's all you need. At first, I didn't look for it because I did not think I could gain it. Likewise, a wise pony that I know didn't look for it at first because he was afraid to lose it. But in the end, we looked for it and found what we needed. The best of friends can help make each other get through troubled times. They'll share the burden of your hurt, even if they feel the exact same way. And maybe that makes it much easier. You can count on your friends to help you find a way through. Because no matter the circumstances, wonderful things happen when you reach out. Let yourself be reached. Yours truly, Sunset Simmer. Sunset set the quill down and looked over her writing. After her one was over, she gave herself a satisfied nod before she levitated the crystal ball over to her. Not sure I for easier. Were you crying during that? I was not. I just had something in my eyes. That, the crystal ball said, is a good entry. I think I should try to learn from that. Sunset smirked. Are you reading all that from your own copy? She asked. I was. You will be. Their laughter echoed out the walls into the parts of the tower unknown. I should mention that a couple of words were changed in my version. Just another example world diversion, I guess. Sunset trotted down the stairs with both ball and paper behind her. She slid her diary drafts into her saddlebag, then lifted the whole thing onto her back. She then nodded to herself. I should probably find them and give them a proper goodbye. The crystal ball didn't answer for a moment. Sunset could not tell what Twilight was doing in a world several days into the future. But why would Twilight not answer? Sunset placed her saddlebag onto her back and opened the door. She still looked back once and levitated the crystal ball into one of the cushions. Twilight, are you there? Another pause, then, sorry, I was checking to see if the others were still at the hospital in your world. So if you said something, I didn't hear you. Twilight's voice sounded straight, cold even. And? I couldn't find them. It looks like they left. Sunset's eyes fell to the floor. Oh, she stammered. I'm sorry, Sunset. Sunset stared back into the empty tower. Even with the bright white and blue palette that looked back at her, even with the cushions that littered the floor, even with all the books upstairs, more than most ponies could want, the tower felt empty. And it was her fault. No, it's okay. Sunset croaked for a few moments. I guess I'll have to go out and find them. Thanks for checking for me. You're welcome. Sunset stepped towards the doorway, but paused. She turned. Oh, and before I forget, I've been hoping to be able to say this to you, and I think now's the best time to do it. She grinned. Happy birthday, Twilight. Or birthdays, however you want to call it. Twilight's voice giggled. Thanks, Sunset. It means a lot to me. Tell everyone at Cancelot High I said hi. With that, Sunset turned outwards once more and clicked to the door frame. Magic grabbed a hold of the double doors and pulled them closed. The double doors locked with a click, and with one last longing look, Sunset descended the staircase. Even in the afternoon streets, the atmosphere felt lazy. Sunset knew Canterlot like the back of her hoof. Before moving to the other world, she had lived in it all her life. It had a much more energy to it. But right now, she could barely hear anything as she strolled along. Few ponies milled about, traversing from shop to shop. Others walked along the sides of the streets by their lonesome, but not even acknowledging others when they passed by. Even after what felt like hours, she had no clues to where they could be. A building that Sunset could swear was halfway made out of windows presented to herself as she rounded one last corner. She felt her ears roll back against her head. She had seen this building a few days before. It wasn't a big building by any means, but it called to her all the same. Sunset stood in the doorway for a few moments. She looked back at the streets behind her, and with a sigh, she walked through. She slid into the line behind the ticket counter. As the ponies in front of her conducted their business, her eyes glued to themselves to the clock on the wall. She watched it tick by without any sign of it slowing down. Finally, the mare reached the front. The stallion behind the cavern looked at her from behind his thick spectacles and pulled at his graying beard.
Yeah, how can I help you today?
He asked with a worn and tired voice. Sunset used her magic to fish out her bags out of her saddlebag and toss them onto the counter. One way to Ponyville, please.
One way to Ponyville,
he echoed as he scooped the biscuit to the register. The stallion reached under the counter and slapped the train ticket onto the countertop.
Your train leaves in about 2 hours. You'll want to be here at the station at least 30 minutes before it arrives.
Sunset nodded. Thank you.
Have a wonderful day, and hope you have a safe trip,
the stallion said with a smile. Sunset slinked toward one of the windows and tossed her saddlebag against it before taking a seat herself. Her eyes drifted out the window. The ground dropped a few yards past the tracks, and Sunset saw the vista beyond. Her eyes glazed across the plains below, tracking a small stream as it meandered through the landscape. Then she followed it back up and went over its length a third time. Her eyes located a clock on the wall and noted the time. What if they know I'm coming here? Sunset watched as the man lurched forward. Spike asked me if I was leaving. Wouldn't it be nice if they all came here soon? Sunset looked back out the window and shook her head. If only. Sunset! The word went through one ear and out the other. Sunset! Somebody calling my name? She blinked. Sunset Shimmer! Sunset whirled around to find Rainbow Dash, leaning dangerously close to her face. Rainbow Mane Pegasus snorted and stood up. It's like you're deaf or something. Sunset scrambled to her host. She looked past Rainbow Dash to find the other 5 nearly staring at her with half smirks. Oh, she said, turning red. You're here. I thought you'd gone back to Twilight by now. Well, of course we'd like to be with Twilight, Rady said. But we have all the time in the world for that. You, on the other hand, are more important right now. Sunset recoiled against the glass, looking between their bright, smiling faces. Sunset chuckled under her breath and wrapped a hoof around her own foreleg. I actually spent some time looking for you guys. I left the hospital without properly saying goodbye and... What? Applejack asked. Did you think we weren't going to see you off? Sunset blocked. See me off? She rubbed the back of her head. I guess I didn't. I forgot all about it. I'm not very good with these kind of things yet. Spike laughed. That's why I asked you if you were leaving later, so we could meet you here. We wouldn't miss it for the world, Pinky exclaimed. Sunset turned around and let out a relieved giggle, not letting out to see wiped a tear from her eye. You guys are the best.
Attention, passengers!
Echoed the voice throughout the station.
The train from Hollow Shades will arrive at the station momentarily. The continuing service from Ponyville, Las Pegasus, and all customers are embarking to those locations, so gather their belongings and make their own way to the platform.
Sunset levitated her saddlebag onto her back. That's me. First I stepped toward the sliding glass doors. Shall we all head out then? Sunset nodded and started for the door. Euphoria gasped and fell to the building as several ponies dropped to the floor. Sunset looked up to see what could cause such a reaction. And spied Princess Celestia standing in the doorway to the station. An older stallion, dressed in a tailored red coat by her side, using its magic to steal a glance at his pocket watch. Celestia searched for a moment before locking her gaze on Sunset. She smiled and glided forward. Sunset turned out to the other 6. I'll meet you guys out at the platform, okay? Friends nodded with an affirmative hugs as they all stepped through the doors and onto the platform. Sunset turned back towards the princess as the latter approached her. She bowed. Princess. The Alicorn leaned forward. You do not have to bow to me, Sunset, she said with a smile. Sunset climbed back on all fours. What are you doing here? I heard that you might be leaving. Thought that I should see you off. Well, I'm glad you came, Sunset said with a chuckle. Although, I also came here, Celestia said, clearing her throat, to see if you'd be willing to spend an extra day here in Canterlot. Sunset raised an eyebrow. An extra day? Celestia motioned with her head toward the 5 ponies, a dragon out on the platform. They told me some of the details. They said that you had a lot to do with what happened, so I planned on holding a ceremony in celebration of your efforts. A ceremony? Just for me? Celestia nodded. Of course. Sunset looked back on the platform. A ceremony just for me, she thought. But then her eyes fell on her friends on the platform. As they talked about something that Sunset could only guess at, even in their equine forms, they reminded her of the ponies waiting for her home. Sunset held up a hoof. I appreciate that, Princess, but I don't think that's possible. Oh? I really have to get home to my friends at Canterlot High. I'm sure they are so worried about me. She kicked at the floor. I've been away from them for nearly 6 days, and I never even told them I was still here. Celestia paused for a moment as she thought those words over. Her wings rustled as her sighs as she looked down at Sunset. Then she smiled and nodded. I understand. You must miss them very much. I do. Celestia chuckled. Well, she said, drawing up, Twilight was right about you. I'm so glad. Sunset blinked. About what? She asked. You've really changed. Sunset smiled. Thanks. But I've still got a long ways to go. Perhaps. Sunset sighed and rubbed the moisture from her eyes. And really, I'm still pretty worn out. It's been a long ordeal for all of us. But I suppose it's been especially long for you, Celestia said. The white alicorn looked over Sunset, out of the window, It drew her own eyes towards the orange close of the sky, and the setting sun a ways off. And in a few short hours, you'll be home with your friends again, safe and sound. Sunset looked out the window as well. Yeah. The telltale rumble of an oncoming locomotive shook the walls as a loud whistle came from outside. The mismatch of steam and the in-and-out hydraulics grew louder as the engine pulled into view. Behind it, several carriages grind to a halt, and he lined up with the station's platform. I wish, Sunset started. I wish I could have spent more time catching up with you. There's so many things I want to tell you about. All the things that I've learned ever since I found friendship. All the things that I've experienced. And all the things that I've missed after I ran away. Celestia looked on as several ponies got off the train. At the same time, several more ponies filed out the sliding door and meet the new arrivals. Fits of laughter and cheers rose up as the ponies were reunited. The princess glanced down at the stallion to her side. Kibbits? The stallion drew a notepad out of his coat and scribbled something down.
I'll see you to it.
The princess smiled and sauntered over to the counter. The ponies in the air edged away as he approached, allowing her to pass and approach the attendant. One ticket to Ponyville, if you please. The stallion behind the counter took his full height.
Of course, Princess Celestia.
Celestia smiled and turned back to Sunset. I would be more than happy to listen to all of it on the way there. That is, if you like. Princess Celestia said with a wink. A smile spread across Sunset's face faster than she could move it herself. That would be great! Nodding, Celestia stepped through the sliding glass doors and out onto the platform, to which Sunset, at a fair distance behind him, Kibbits followed as well. Celestia stopped at the entrance car and turned. I will find a seat for the two of us. Sunset nodded. See you in a second. You know, considering the size of the trains in My Little Pony, I wonder how Celestia is actually going to fit. I mean, her horn is going to be scratching the top of the ceiling. As Princess Celestia boarded the train and disappeared into the car, Kibbit strolled up to the conductor and whispered into his ear. Conductor considered it, then nodded, taking his swats. Sunset turned to the six behind her. She looked through each of their eyes and blushed. Well, it's been a blast, she said. This is it. These past few days have sure been something, Applejack said with a smirk. They sure have, Ravendesk exclaimed. That was fun, but let's not do that again. The seven of them laughed in response. Well, we got one in the end, didn't we? Pinkie Pie said, looking around. We did, and I'm tired, Spike said. Well, anyways, we sure appreciate all that you did, Applejack said with a tip of her hat. We owe ya. This was all you, Ravendesk added. Sunset frowned. No, it wasn't, she replied. Rarity stepped forward. Sunset Simmer, you were the one that kept us going. You were the one that figured out all the other worlds stuff. You figured out all the nasty contradictions to set us all on the right path. My, you were the one that found Twilight to begin with. She motioned to the other five. I think I speak for all of us when I say that we don't know where we would be without you. You have given our lives back. Horseeye nodded and smiled. Thanks, Sunset, for everything you did for Twilight. Sunset held up a hoof. Please, girls, you give me way too much credit. I could not have done this without all of you, she said, placing a hoof to her chest. She let her head hang for some moments as she stared at the wooden floor. You made me feel like I had a place in this world again. You girls, you all went to the ends of the world for Twilight. Sunset pointed to herself and laughed. I just sat in the tower and wrote stuff. Harris giggled along. Sunset turned to the dragon. And Spike, you saw me go to the dark place, and you picked me right back up. You helped me with so many things, and... Spike shook her head and chuckled. Twilight couldn't ask for a better assistant. Spike beamed and beat a fist against his chest. Sunset could feel some water welling up in her eyes. I think it's all of you that helped me the most. I am so happy that I got to meet all of you. I'm going to miss all of you. The train let out a long whistle that made them jump. They looked over to the conductor, who remained on the platform. He met their stares and rolled his hose in a wrap-it-up motion. I have to go, I guess, Sunset muttered. She looked back forward to 5 ponies and a dragon, all of them who smiled back at her. 6 individuals with whom she had made friends with. These friends of Equestria. Her friends. But, after all, I'm just a portal away. Sunset took a breath as he thought about her next words and grinned. Twilight said something once, and I think it fits here too. This isn't goodbye. It's just goodbye until next time. The 6 swarmed her, scooping her up in a multifaceted embrace. Their hose locked and their voices mingled as they let forth several well wishes, and compliments, and many other things in between. Sunset grabbed onto them as well, wishing that she had never had to let go. All at once, the 7 broke. Sunset turned and stepped onto the train car. With one last wave to them, she too, like Celestia before her, disappeared into the car. The train let out another whistle and lurched forward. The rhythmic sound of steam as it pushed and pulled bellowed up into the side, smoke into the air. It gained speed, and as it drew further and further away, finally the train disappeared around the corner and faded into someplace far into the city. Last chapter. Epilogue. Sunset's world twisted about, but with every moment it bent her less and less. Finally, it stopped just enough where Sunset could move on her own. She put her hoof, no, that changed to a foot somewhere along the line, forward. Her foot hit concrete. At that, she planted her other foot in the concrete as well, and looked up. She saw a black sky that faded into blue, and, near the far-off horizon, red. A few stars poked their way through, and with each moment, more and more appeared out of hiding. Her eyes drifted downwards to find a sizable building arc around her. The faded red bricks rose up higher than most buildings in Equestria. Canterlot High, in its own way, resembled a palace. And we were able to repair our float right in time for the parade, a voice said. It sounded like Fluttershy. Sunset's eyes centered on the front steps. Several lanterns linked the features on several individuals. Several individuals she recognized. Her best friends. While most sat on the steps, 2 of them sat on folding chairs that faced the center of the circle. She could see what looked like flat boxes lying around, but could not tell what they were. At the very top of their circle, to her surprise, sat Principal Celestia, who stood at her and smiled. Well, I am very pleased to hear that. I'm sure Sunset would be happy to know you recovered. At once, 5 of them slumped in their seats. Yeah, Pinkie Pie said, rising from. Sunset chuckled to herself and stepped forward. Hey, everyone, she greeted. At once, the 6 humans whirled around her in their seats. After a moment of taking her in, they shot into their feet. Sunset! They cried in unison. You came back! Rarity exclaimed. Sunset blinked. Yeah. Sorry I didn't mean to be gone so long. It's just some things happened. Ravendash laughed. And here we were thinking about heading home for tonight. Sunset frowned. Huh? Well, Fluttershy said, we've been here for a few hours already. Sorry, Sonny, Pinkie Pie said, pointing to a box in the crowd. Pizza's already cold. Sunset's eyes drifted down to the boxes on the ground, as he noticed the label emblazoned on their surface. Right. Sunset shook her head. Okay, but what are all of you doing here? I thought being on the grounds at night was against the rules. Which is why I am here. Celestia says he leaned against the handrail. This has been a difficult time for all of us, but especially for you 6. But I'm really touched by how strong the bonds between you are. Sunset held her hand to her mouth to hide her chuckle, the red in her face giving her away. So, Sunset, Ravendash asked, what held you up so long? There was the question. Sunset grinned. I was on a very interesting adventure. Yeah? We learned a lot about what happened. Actually, we kind of, sort of, saved it. Really hard. They met Sunset with confused frowns and raised eyebrows. I mean, Sunset continued, time travel got involved and parallel worlds got involved. It was confusing at times. But we were there in those days leading up to Twilight going down. Rarity, after trying to exchange glances with others, said, So, you changed the past? Sunset shook her head. No, it's like we were always a part of it. Is, was, will be. So, Pinkie Pie began. What? What actually happened then? Sunset spelled a smile across her face. A smile showed her teeth. In no those teeth, she tried and failed to stifle her giggles. With each moment, she lost more and more control, and her laughter grew in volume. Sunset simmer? Celestia asked, with concerned tone. Sunset beamed at them as her laughter continued. Fireside gasped. No way, she exclaimed, pointing straight at her. You can't possibly say. Sunset nodded. I can! Rarity's eyes went wide as she gasped. Are you saying that I think you're saying? We figured it out. We made it happen. She's doing fine. Sunset giggled. She says hi, by the way. The humans before her jumped with joy and shouted all sorts of exclamations, tears before finding the girl closest to them and scooping them up in an embrace. All except Rainbow Dash, who sprang up higher than Sunset thought possible and punched the air. And she ponied up right then and there. And Celestia was still with her arms crossed and a grin spread across her face. That's amazing! Rarity sighed. Yay! Fireside exclaimed. Applejack broke her hug first and nearly lost at Sunset. Last Mars Whale! You gotta tell us about it! I'd be happy to tell you about it, Sunset said, backing away. She smiled. Just not right now, though. It's a really long story and I'm about ready to pass out my bed. And, Celestia interjected, it's a very late, so I'm going to have to lock the front doors up for now. She pointed to all the boxes and lanterns on the ground. Set all this in my trunk, she instructed, with a knowing smile. I'll take care of it. The girls nodded and picked up several items and hauled them across the lawn. At that point, Sunset noticed the line of cars parked on the curbside. While she recognized the station wagons and compact cars, the pickup truck was unfamiliar. Sunset headed in that direction with the folding chairs. One by one, the 6 of them set the items onto the back of the pickup, then gathered on the sidewalk. Sunset turned to face them. I can't wait to catch up with all of you. I've got so much to say, and I'm sure a lot has happened here, too. I learned so much about these past few days, and She looked between each of them, all of them who looked back at her with smiles on their faces. I've missed all of you so much. It's good to be home again, with you girls. With that, the 5 of her friends drew toward her. He took her one last group hug. As they took her, Sunset could feel warmth within herself, one which, somehow, she knew she had all along. As they broke, Sunset looked to the night sky and thought, So, I might sleep in. Does 3-ish tomorrow at the cafe sound good to everyone? They met her with furious nods. Sunset looked up at Principal Celestia, approached him once more. Celestia paused as he noticed Sunset's glance. Sunset's friends followed suit and looked up as well. The principal shook her head. It would be unprofessional, Celestia asserted. Technically so is this, please, Sunset pleaded. We'll buy even. It's the least we could do for tonight, I think. Even behind a stoic frown, Sunset could spot the twinkle in Celestia's eye. I'll think about it, Celestia replied. You girls have a good night. You too, they all replied in unison. As Celestia climbed into her truck, Sunset turned to her friends. I'm going to get you some set-eye. See you all tomorrow. The rest of them broke and responded with a good night of their own, then headed their separate ways. Sunset watched as each of them filed to their cars, or in Rarity's case, hopped into Applejack's car. With the roar of engines, one by one, her friends pulled out and drove around the corners, disappearing for the night. Sunset turned her gaze toward the reds on the horizon. The picturesque glow of the ever-receding blue and red calmed her with its serenity. As a nighty wind blew through her hair, cold wind howled pressed past her. She knew nothing could cut it. It was here just like on any other night, like it would be on the nights to come. After all, the full, lively twilight above her head meant only one thing. Sunset and Simmer knew that much. The end. Review. This Vic, I'm not gonna lie, was pretty dang good. I mean, right now, the grammar, pacing, all that, all the technical stuff, done really well. As a matter of fact, I have my notes right here, and I was trying to find exactly something bad to say about it before I got to the good. And all I've got in my notes so far are, wish I had more time to see the others' quests, and stop trying to look for bad stuff in stories you like and get to talking about why you like this. And this is why I suck as a reviewer. I kid, but I slowly start to realize that the more I enjoy a story, the less bad I have something to say about it. So, what is good about it? Try everything. As the season finale proved, you gotta be careful with time travel, otherwise you're going to have some fans who complain about it and yell about it. Or some fans who do love the episode to point out, well, there is some problems. This fic proves that what can happen when you are being really well done with it. I love the stable causality loop, and I love how once we got to the end of our long journey, everything that was at the beginning clicked together. All the clues and all the questions just slowly filled itself in as we discovered with them. There was a lot of surprises to be had with the plot, and it kept us motivated to go see more. Like, okay, so and how did the cloak get there? How did the ball get there? I love how the antagonist of this whole entire thing, the Nameless, wasn't really seen and didn't really feel all that necessary. It was just generic evil, but in a way, the bad guy did not matter. Was not important. It was essentially focusing on what was really important, the characters' relationships and how they would help Twilight stop the bad guy. Basically, by making the creature nameless, it was essentially a analogy for just how the girls handle evil in the first place. I'm not saying all the villains are the same. What I'm saying is that it could have been any type of evil. A cruel despot, a black cloud, chaos master, that type of thing. And they would have handled it the same way, by working together and using the strength of their friendship. This thing was just a presence, kind of like Sauron was. This allowed us to focus on what was important and what I think is the story's driving force and what makes it so good. The freaking characters. I mean, I love how each one of them's reactions felt so real and in character, especially when we got to the end and they were all ready to give up and allow Twilight to just go. It felt so right for each one of them. First Eye breaks first. Makes sense. Then Rarity struggles, but sooner breaks because a lady would not put it down. Then we move to Rainbow Dash, who slowly starts to break. Why? Not just because her friend was going to die, but her friend had given up. And this was impossible for her to imagine because she would never give up. Rainbow Dash would never quit, and she thought that her friend would be like her, and she would never give up. So seeing Twilight give up like this was breaking. And Applejack and Pinkie Pie, their hopes and prayers, like they were trying so hard to find that one last piece of hope. I love how sometimes we got into arguments and sometimes we got into rumbles, but At the same time, it felt not like they were mad at each other, but they were mad at either the situation or were just having a normal, everyday friendship argument. Just a argument between friends where they were just a little miffed at each other. But they would grow from it. And the scenes between them, like the card game, them just talking or creating a picture, those were absolutely heartwarming. They were beautifully done. I meant it when I said I was tearing up at some points, because all those moments were just so heartwarming. It was almost like Twilight had never really left them. And the twist at the end when we saw Twilight from 9 days into the future really helped cement it. And I love how he used every single rule of the universe to manipulate it. But I think my favorite part of this story, my favorite character, has got to be Sunset Shimmer. Our little mare who could. She starts off, I love how her character arc starts her off by making her feel like she isn't important to the group. She's not needed because these are Twilight's friends. They're not her friends from Canterlot, they are hers. That she should not pay attention to them. She should not hang out with them. For all the while, we see her acting distant and broken and sad. Like, well, these are not my friends. Then as time moved on, we see her grow. We see her start forming bonds. And I guess in a way we start seeing how true it is. How friendship carries on through the ages. It doesn't matter what their skin was, or if they had 4 hooves, or 2 legs. What was important was the soul and the heart of each of those mares. And that's what Sunset was connecting to. And it took her a while to realize it. I also love Spike's relationship here. We see him acting like the son who's slowly growing up, trying to form his bond with Twilight. I really love that moment where he took Twilight out and showed her the street, showing off his writing talent. It was wonderful. But back to Sunset. I love how we see how she thinks, how she works, and how she tries to manipulate, tries to fix things. And I love how her friendship with these others grows to match her own friendships back home. She does not replacing them. She just sees them as another group of friends. And that's what makes this purely awesome. I also love how the story takes time in between cold opens to demonstrate to every single one of us just how one death affected so much. Be it from the CMC to Shining and Katie to Chrysalis. I love how the author picked those guys and showed each one of them. If I had any other complaints about this, I just thought about it, is that, well, I'll let my producers say it. There was not enough of me in it. Darn it! When Trixie wants to be in a property involving Twilight, darn it, Trixie should be there! Yes, Trixie, we all know. Well, that was one story down. Next time, it's a Christmas tale, and I hope all of you are going to enjoy. Roll it. My name is Nick Sparkle. Over a year ago, I almost destroyed my home. But now, thanks to my mom, I've been redeemed. Now, I'm going to spend Heartswarming with my family. I do hope all of them don't mind me coming. Well, guess I'll find out. Coming up this Monday, Winter Bells by Penstroke. Yes, people, we're actually about to do an actual Penstroke story. Let's do this.